one thing I know that Mr. David Cobb from CBS Sports on college football and college basketball, one thing I 100% know, David, is that you somehow, being a kid from Memphis, went to school in Knoxville, worked in Chattanooga, and now nationally for CBS Sports, somehow you have your pulse on the Big Ten. Like, how are you so good at Big Ten predictions?
It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, so I was the only one on our staff last night who picked Ohio State to beat Duke. And, of course, for 35 minutes of that game, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. In fact, I had actually forgotten that I was the only one who picked Ohio State until about an hour after the game. So I went to get the screen grab from CBSSports.com and put it on there. And, I mean, it's just kind of for fun, really. But I was also the only one on our staff who picked Iowa to win the Big Ten West. So, yeah, I'm an SEC guy kind of by nature, but I have no problem with some bold takes on the Big Ten. And a few of them have made me look smart. Now, of course, I don't post the screen grabs of the picks I make that look really dumb. But it's been fun just like interacting with new fan bases because they all seem to really appreciate it when I go out on a limb and take their team.
Hey, well, you never want to admit when you're wrong, but always want to boaster when you're right. And one thing about this college basketball season that has been a little nutty, it's been a little crazy as it always is around this time, like you said, Duke lost to Ohio State last night. Ohio State, who lost previously to Xavier that lost to Iowa State. They beat Memphis. So are you telling me last Saturday Memphis lost to the best team in the country? Is that how that works?
Yeah, right. Like you can do so many of those extrapolations at this point in the season already. I mean, just look at Ohio State. Like, they beat Duke last night, but they got taken down to the wire by Akron, the first week of the season. So is Akron on par with Duke? I don't know, but it makes the games fun. The parity, obviously, we're enjoying the parity in college football this year a lot, and that's what college basketball thrives on. I mean, last season was kind of a weird year where Gonzaga and Baylor actually dominated all year and ended up playing each other. This year has the makings of a crazy season in college basketball because it's going to end up being a little bit of a revolving door at number one, it seems like. So, I mean, I'm real curious to see what the AP voters do with that number one spot next week. I assume it'll go to Purdue, but, Purdue's not going to go undefeated in the Big Ten. And if they've got to decide at some point between Gonzaga and Duke, what sort of influence does Duke's head-to-head win have on that? It's going to be a fun year in college hoops because I think the parity is going to be really strong. Oh,
it definitely will. And I believe last time we had you on, I asked about overrated or underrated, kind of going into the season. And now that we started the year, I want to ask about the SEC in particular. Obviously sitting here in the middle of Razorback country and covering Arkansas. They're number 10 in the country. You've got I believe six SEC teams ranked in the AP top 25. Through the short sample size, how have you perceived the SEC thus far, and were they overrated going in the year, underrated, and also kind of your thoughts on Arkansas thus far?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the SEC on a whole has delivered to this point. There haven't been just a ton of catastrophic or super ugly losses. Like, I mean, you go out and look at the Pac-12, that league has suffered some really bad losses. And for the sake of this conversation, let's exclude Georgia because, I mean, they're a train wreck.
Yes, they are.
It would take a miracle for them to beat Memphis tonight. But, so on the whole, the SEC has been really, really strong. And in fact, I would even say a little bit surprising in the fact that Florida, it looks like it could be a legitimate national player. Texas A&M somehow is better, even though really when you look at the roster, it doesn't look like it should be better. And then, it looks like Mississippi State could get in the mix as well. So going into the year, I kind of had that top five, Arkansas, Auburn, Alabama, Kentucky, and Tennessee, in whatever order you wanted to put them. And then after that, I was a little bit more uncertain. But to this point, Florida, and for that matter, LSU, a team I hadn't mentioned yet, they're undefeated too. So the depth looks really good. And I think there's a chance for the league to get, up to 8 teams maybe in the NCAA tournament. And then obviously Arkansas has been good so far. I don't know that they've really been tested, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Cincinnati's better than most people thought they would be. But Kansas State is garbage. No offense to Bruce Weber, but I don't know. I mean, it's not the heaviest non-conference schedule for Arkansas. So they're kind of creeping up the polls, but I don't think it's because they've just dominated anybody yet or have an impressive win. They're just taking care of business. Mm-hmm. To their credit, that's not always the easiest thing to do when you're working a bunch of new players into your rotation in November. And they've done that so far. So I still have questions on Arkansas. I mean, I think with everything they lost, you've got to kind of wait and see with this team. But, so far, so good.
Yeah, that's the thing about this time of the year, not only just for Arkansas, for a lot of programs, it's trying to figure out rotations, trying to figure out meshing, it's trying to figure out who's going to work well with who on the floor. And when you have this type of team that Arkansas has, and a lot of teams in today's college basketball has, where it's one and dones, it's reload in the transfer portal. It's a constant rotation of guys in and guys out of the program. What are your feelings on, kind of non-conference scheduling, through November into December before you get into conference play? Is it better to take hey, let's make sure that we don't get embarrassed. Let's win some games. Let's schedule cupcakes here and there. We'll schedule medium type of opponents. That way we build some confidence up, can figure out what works best for us. Or is it better to kind of like Duke, like Gonzaga, like Kentucky and Kansas do, to kind of front load their schedule, figure out what's not working against top talent. That way, by the time they get to conference play where it really matters, they've got it figured out. Which one do you think is the better aspect, the best route to take?
I mean, I'm a huge fan of playing marquee non-conference games because the way that everything sets up now in college basketball with the formula used by the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee, you're really not penalized for losing a game that ends up being a quad one. And so quad one, if you look at it on a neutral court, that's anybody in the top 50 on a neutral court. So you can lose to a team that's not even considered elite on a neutral court, and it's still a quad one loss that's not really going to hurt you come NCAA tournament selection time. So a game like that can only help you. And then on the other end, a quad 4 win does nothing for you, mm-hmm. and a quad 3 win does very little. So, I'm an advocate of playing quality non-conference opponents. I think you got to take it on a year-by-year basis, though, because, I look at Iowa, for example. They lost so much from last year. Luka Garza, obviously, but in addition to him, they also lost Joe Wieskamp. They also lost C.J. Frederick, Jack Nungy. Anyway, they play a super easy non-conference schedule this year. And I think that benefits them because it gives them time to figure out who they are. And so maybe that's Musselman's approach. Mm-hmm. And, he's the type of coach who I give the benefit of the doubt to on a lot of things because he's shown he's kind of on the cutting edge of whatever's the new thing in college basketball. He's kind of a few years ahead. And, so I would prefer, I think, to see teams play tougher non-conference schedules. I don't think it can hurt you in any way. But I think it's a case-by-case basis. And, in Arkansas's case, they've chosen to take the easier route this year. And I'll say this also, you can want to schedule big-time non-conference games. It doesn't always work out. It's really difficult logistically sometimes to get the type of schedule together that you want that works with certain dates, that works with your academic calendar, that works with your commitments to, those multi-team events that so many programs, play in. So, they had no way of knowing whenever this multi-team event was set that, mm-hmm. Kansas State would be terrible again. And, it is what it is. But I think Arkansas is fine. And the other thing I would say on non-conference scheduling is, please, can we stop starting the best college basketball games like at 9:30 in the Central Time Zone?
100%.
My gosh, like my eye has been twitching for the last 2 weeks because I'm not getting any sleep because I'm staying up till 1 a.m. writing about these games.
David, I also produce the morning show, so I go to bed at 9:30 because I have to get up at 4:20. So these national marquee games that everybody's been excited for, I have not gotten to watch a second of it. So I'm 100% on that. We're speaking with David Cobb, national sports writer for CBS Sports on college football and college basketball. David, just a few more things as we only got a few more minutes. Do want to get your opinion on the coaching carousel and everything that's gone on. Lincoln Riley to USC, and then your opinion on Brian Kelly to LSU. And, you being more of a national guy working at CBS Sports, did you ever hear Brian Kelly's name thrown out? Because when I first got the notification of the report that it's being reported that Brian Kelly is going to LSU, that was the first time his name had ever crossed my mind for that job.
Yeah, I mean, there was always this idea of, if Brian Kelly was going to make another career move, this would be the time to do it. But I didn't think he would really do it because, how many jobs out there are really better than Notre Dame? Mm-hmm. You could really argue whether or not LSU is actually a better job than Notre Dame. I don't think you can argue, though, that it's easier to win a national title at LSU than it is at Notre Dame. It's also a whole lot easier to go, 5-7 and get everybody mad at you than it is at Notre Dame, probably. But the potential for him to do something he's never done before is there. So, I was as shocked as anybody. I think probably even more shocked than the Lincoln Riley move. The Riley move makes a lot of sense when you really step back and think about this guy still not being 40 years old and having plateaued perhaps at Oklahoma when that school is about to go to the toughest conference in America. Now we can go out to the Pac-12, have a sleeping giant, the nicest team in that conference and a conference that's really struggling and, really dominate out there. So, I get that one a lot more than I get, Kelly to LSU, but I guess it's a last-ditch effort for a 60-year-old coach to climb that final summit and win a national title. Can't sit here and guarantee you it's going to go well. I wouldn't be at all surprised if it's up in flames after 3 years. But by the same token, if you told me you won a national title there in 3 or 4 years, that wouldn't shock me either. There's just so much volatility at LSU, and I think Brian Kelly is looking at that and seeing the high end of that, and the end of that where Ed Ogeron and Les Miles can compete for national titles there. Surely he can. So it's been a nutty coaching carousel, and the fact is Notre Dame and Oklahoma are still open. Yeah. It feels like we've been through a whirlwind already in the last few days, and two of the best jobs in the sport still have to make hires.
Yeah, David, real quick, got about 30 seconds before we have to take the break. Give me your CFP Final Four. Who gets in this time next week?
Yeah, I've got Georgia beating Alabama in the SEC title game and knocking Alabama out. So I think Michigan beats Iowa. Those two are the clear-cut locks. And then Cincinnati would be in there, I think probably number 3 for me. And then I suspect Oklahoma State beats Baylor in the Big 12 title game, and that ends up being the 4. Georgia, Michigan, Cincinnati, and Oklahoma State. But boy, there's a part of me that wants to see Notre Dame go in without a coach and win the thing now. Wouldn't that be crazy?
Yeah, it would. Well, David, I appreciate you joining us. Appreciate you giving us some of your time, and we'll talk to you later on down the college basketball season. Sound good?
It's Thanksgiving, and we all know what that means, football. And nothing goes better with football than turkey and betting. BetOnline has you covered for all the holiday season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all sports action this Thanksgiving. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus with the promo code BELIEVE to receive your bonus. That's BLEAV to receive your bonus. And it's not just football. BetOnline has pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all these amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports.